Diddy has said this. He said, when I give a party, I have to have an ambulance outside of the house. Paramedics ready. That people have to take IVs. Remember the time that him and his mama kissed each other on the lips? Do you remember that both of them was getting an IV at the same time? That's from the Diddy Freak Off party.
Kick in the door, waving the 4-4. All you heard was Papa, don't hit me no more. Let's go. Kick in the door, waving the 4-4. Hey, hey, hey.
If they were saying somebody that was more celebrity than Diddy, he was an A-lister, he was younger, you know what I'm saying? And if he's not black, it would have to be the Bieber. Why would Justin Bieber make a song about, what is it? I got smashed at a Diddy party or something like that?
You might want to sit down for this one because what Gene Deal is revealing now takes everything you thought you knew about the industry and burns it to the ground. This isn't just gossip, and it's not coming from some blogger chasing clout. This is coming straight from the man who spent years by Diddy's side, who was there when the lights were low and the doors were closed. Gene Deal wasn't just a bystander. He was Diddy's bodyguard during the bad boy empire's peak, when the music was dominating the charts and Diddy was untouchable. That means Gene didn't just hear about the madness, he lived in it, watched it unfold, protected it, and kept quiet for way too long. Now that silence is over. In one of his most jaw-dropping and disturbing claims yet, Gene is putting it all on the line. According to him, Diddy wasn't just mentoring young stars like Usher and Justin Bieber. He was allegedly offering them up to powerful industry men behind the scenes, not just bringing them around, not just introducing them to music execs, but allegedly mping them out. Let that sink in. These weren't just kids trying to make it. They were being used as pieces in a sick game of control, influence, and dirty favors. And Gene says he saw the signs, felt the tension, and knew deep down what was really going on, even back then. He talks about those days with the kind of detail that only someone on the inside could have. The parties that started innocent but got weird real quick. The grown men with too much power and not enough boundaries. The way young artists were passed around, celebrated on the surface but treated like currency behind closed doors. This wasn't rare. This wasn't a one-off situation. According to Gene, this was the culture. And what's even more twisted is how well it was all hidden. The public saw Diddy the mogul, the mastermind, the hitmaker. They saw Bieber, the prodigy, and Usher the golden boy. No one saw what was really going on in those luxury penthouses, those industry retreats, those private jets with no cameras and no rules. But Gene did. He was there. And now he's telling it all. For years, he held it in. Maybe out of loyalty, maybe out of fear, maybe because he thought no one would believe him. But now, the floodgates are open, and he's not tiptoeing around anything. He's naming names, drawing connections, and exposing a system that runs deeper and dirtier than most can even imagine. So, before you try to write this off as another wild claim, ask yourself this. Why would a man who was right in the middle of all of it, who had everything to lose and nothing to gain, come out now and say something this heavy unless it was the truth? This is bigger than just drama. This is a glimpse into the dark heart of an industry built on power, silence, and exploitation. And thanks to Gene, that silence is finally being shattered. And just when you thought it could not get any darker, Gene Deal took it even further. In a new interview on the Art of Dialogue podcast, Gene dropped another bomb, one that makes everything else seem even more calculated. This time, the focus was not just on what Diddy allegedly did behind closed doors, but what he might have kept from those moments. Gene claimed that Diddy never went anywhere without his recording gear. We are talking tape recorders, cameras, and surveillance-like setups rolling while the rest of the room thought they were just partying. Nothing was ever really private around Diddy. And if Gene is telling the truth, then there could be footage out there that would make even the most powerful names in Hollywood nervous. Wherever Diddy went, his tape recorders went. His camera equipment was working. He was videotaping everything. That is how Gene put it. No hesitation, no need to hold back. He made it clear that this was not a one-time thing. This was a habit, a routine. Diddy was documenting everything, and not in a harmless, let's capture the memories kind of way. According to Gene, these recordings might contain moments and interactions that were never meant to see the light of day. And if you start to think about who was in those rooms, who was hanging around him during those wild years, the list gets long and uncomfortable real quick. When asked if certain celebrities should be worried, Gene did not sugarcoat it. He brought up Ashton Kutcher directly and said, Ashton Kutcher has a right to be alarmed if he was doing things with Diddy. That alone speaks volumes. Because Ashton was not just a random acquaintance, Gene recalled a specific memory where the three of them, Diddy, Ashton, and himself, went to a Mets game and ended up meeting Jay-Z there. This was not some passing interaction. This was a genuine friendship. Gene made it clear that Ashton and Diddy were close during that time. They hung out, they partied, they were cool. And now, looking back, the question becomes what was really going on during those hangouts, and more importantly, what was being recorded. Ashley Kutcher and him were real tight, Deal said, implying that more than just one celebrity might be affected by Diddy's actions. All of them should be worried, Deal warned, adding fuel to speculation about the extent of Diddy's alleged misconduct. But Ashton was not the only A-lister in that circle. Gene also talked about something called the Brat Pact. According to him, Diddy was part of this quiet clique of elite celebrities, a group that allegedly included Leonardo DiCaprio, among others. It was a tight network, powerful people with powerful secrets, all wrapped in a layer of fame that kept most questions from ever being asked. Until now. And here is where it gets even more twisted. If Diddy really was recording everything, then who else might be caught up in that? Who else from that era was part of those private gatherings, those after parties, those trips on private jets? Justin Bieber's name has already been linked to Diddy more than once. We know he was around him at a young age. We know there were photos, appearances, performances. And if Gene is right about Diddy's obsession with recording, then what does that mean for Bieber? Was he just another young star caught in the middle of something he did not fully understand? This is the part where the whole thing stops feeling like celebrity gossip and starts sounding like evidence. Gene is not just talking. He is giving context, detail, names, and situations that start to connect in ways that make you pause. These are not loose claims. These are first-hand accounts from someone who had front row seats to one of the most powerful and secretive men in the industry. And he is finally telling the world what he saw. It is no longer just about what Diddy allegedly did. It is now about what he might have kept, who was with him when it happened, and how much longer those secrets can stay buried. In the wake of Diddy's recent arrest on charges that include racketeering, SA, fraud, Gene Deal's words have taken on a whole new weight. What once felt like bold claims from a former insider now reads like early warnings that no one wanted to hear. The headlines are finally catching up to what Gene had been trying to expose for years, and now people are starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, he was telling the truth all along. And he's been talking a lot about this stuff.
And this story starts when I'm with Puff, and he's in exotic bookstores and he's doing shopping, right? He's shopping, getting his stuff and everything like that. So, you know, this is the first time I was ever in an exotic bookstore with Puff. So, you know, I'm giving him his space. He's taking things off the shelves and stuff like that because they gave him a brown paper bag. When they gave him a brown paper bag, he was just putting stuff in there. So I said, damn, you know, he got to go put it on the counter and, you know, show everybody what he's getting. So as he's going, I'm just looking at the places where he's picking stuff from. So there's one part he picked up some things from up here on my left side. And then he picked like quite a few of them down. I'm like, okay. He put them in the bag. So when I went by there and I looked up there and it said butt plugs. And I was like, hey, yo. I was messing with him. Because people don't understand, you know, we was like friends. He was a part of the same gang, so I'm still gonna tease him. I'm still gonna mess with him and everything like that. I could do that. It wasn't just no security thing. So I say, yo, what are you getting this for? And it said butt plugs, and he was like, yo, can I do my shopping by myself? I said, yeah, you could do it by yourself, brother. And he started walking and everything like that. When he got to, I just waited at the counter. When he got to the counter, he He didn't even have to show the guy nothing. He just gave the guy a wad of money. I mean, like, he gave the guy a stack something like this. And Puff wasn't the dude that carried no 20s and no 50s and nothing like that. And I mean, like, he just said, boom. And we walked out the store. Later on that, I think that afternoon, same day, this rapper and him, they all in the room together. You know, it's Sarah, the girl, Puff, and this dude, this rapper. So I'm here at the door and stuff like that, like, yeah. So then next thing you know, somebody rang the doorbell. We had the presidential suite where we was at. So I opened the door and the dude said, yo, I'm here for my cousin. I said, who your cousin? And he said, Ja Rule. I said, well, he busy right now. He said, he busy doing what? I said, he with Puff, they're in the room, they busy, they don't want to be bothered. He said, well, I'm going in there. I said, bruh, you ain't going in there because he told me they don't want nobody to be bothering them. He was like, yo, I don't care, man, I'm going in there. That boot like that. I said, yo, bruh, Jesus Christ had to come down here and take the air out of my body before you get in that room right there. Watch. He tried to bum rush me. I grabbed it and threw him against the piano. When I threw him into the piano, Puff and Ja Rule runs out the room. Puff got his towel, Ja grabbing his towel, but they butt the naked. And so then Ja was like, yo, what's going on? Yo, Gene, that's my cousin. He know me well, you know, and Puff was like, yo, Gene, what happened? I said, he tried to get in the room. I told him he couldn't get in the room. He was like, Puff looked at Ja. He said, yo, Ja said, you ain't want to go in that room because there's a lot of freaking going on. So I was like, oh, he said it was a lot of freaking going on. So that was basically that story, man. You know what I'm saying? They went back in the room. Dude felt a certain kind of way.
Gene is not surprised by the charges. If anything, he is frustrated that it took this long. In his own words, the authorities had known about Diddy's actions for over a decade. This was not a sudden fall from grace. This was a slow build of power, protection, and silence. Puff was doing some crazy shit, Gene said during one of his recent interviews. And then he asked the question everyone should be asking. Why didn't they stop him then, bro? Why do they wait till 2024? It is a question that hits hard. Because if the system knew, if people behind the scenes had access to the same whispers and evidence that Gene claims he did, then why was nothing done? How many lives were affected while the world looked the other way? How many victims were silenced, ignored, or discredited just to keep the image of a music mogul intact? Gene's frustration is personal. He watched this unfold in real time. He stood next to the man at the center of it all. He witnessed the chaos, the manipulation, the behavior that now sits at the heart of federal charges. And for years, no one wanted to listen. Now, with the law finally stepping in, people are running back to Gene's interviews, combing through every word, connecting the dots that were there all along. And Gene has a lot of info on what Puff used to do with the kids who were assigned to him or his label. One name that keeps coming up in these conversations is Usher. For years, it has been well known that he lived with Diddy for a stretch of time when he was still young and rising in the industry. At the time, it was framed as mentorship, just a teenage artist staying close to a powerful figure who could open doors and offer guidance. But now, with all the disturbing allegations coming out against Diddy, people are looking back at that situation with fresh eyes. Suddenly, the idea of a young Usher living under the same roof as a man now accused does not sit right. It feels off. It raises real questions. Was Usher just being mentored, or was something else happening behind the scenes? Justin Bieber's name has also been tied to Diddy for years. We have seen the old footage. Bieber hanging out with Diddy at events, being introduced to adult spaces before he was even old enough to vote. It was always painted as a celebrity cosign. But now, in light of everything coming to the surface, that relationship looks different. The idea of two incredibly young artists, Usher back then and Bieber not long after, Being brought into Diddy's inner circle makes people wonder if they were being used under the guise of mentorship, if they were simply caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, or worse, if they were victims too. Gene Deal recently opened up about something he heard during his time with Diddy, and even though he was clear that it was secondhand, the details were disturbing. Gene said he did not know who Usher was at first. He remembered someone bringing up a situation in passing. According to Gene, someone said, "Puff sent this little kid to the hospital." When Gene asked what happened, the response was chilling. Man, he was bleeding from the butt. That is what was said.
You know, Puff sent this little kid to the hospital. How he sent him to the hospital? Man, Nick was bleeding from the butt. And that's what was said. But I didn't even have a name for the kid at the time. Then you heard, and that's what happened. And that's just, that's something that you heard. You don't know if it's true, you just heard it. So, and just to hear this, and this new thing where they saying that they got kids coming forward and said that he did that, man, that shit is crazy. And like I just said, that's just something that I heard. It's something that I didn't know. It's something that I ain't see. A lot of people want to, because Gene Deal has spoken on certain things that I've heard, I have spoken on it. But then they were just trying to say, I know. No, I'm not scared to say what I heard. And if there's any truth to it, then it's truth to it. Let them find it. Things that I've saw or things that I've witnessed and been a part of, I've said it. I'm not afraid to say what I saw or what I didn't see. A lot of people want to make up shit. I don't make up things. When I say Puff go in the room with two girls, you understand, and another guy and a rapper, and then all of a sudden they cousin try to go in the room, I throw them up against the piano, they run out the room grabbing towels and they naked. They still had two girls in the room. But people want to make up a lot of bullshit and say what they want to say and flip it the way they want to flip it.
Gene made it clear that he did not know if it was true. He was not claiming to have seen it, but hearing something like that in the kind of environment he was in left a mark, especially because, as he pointed out, other kids were starting to come forward with stories of their own, stories that were disturbing, stories that lined up with the same patterns. Gene also took time to defend himself from critics who accuse him of fabricating or exaggerating what he knows. He made it clear that he only ever speaks on what he saw or what he was told directly. He never claimed to have witnessed every incident firsthand, but he also stressed that some of the things he did hear were impossible to ignore. The story about Usher was one of those moments, a moment that stood out, a moment that still haunts him, even though he cannot confirm whether it was fact or rumor. What makes all of this even more troubling is the consistency in the pattern. Young talent, isolated environments, powerful men with too much control. Whether it was Usher back in the day or Justin Bieber a few years later, the setup looks eerily similar. They were both young, vulnerable, and full of promise. And they were both connected to Diddy at critical stages in their lives. With all the new charges and allegations now being brought to light, people are starting to realize this might have been part of something much bigger than anyone imagined. And for those who are finally listening to what Gene Deal has been saying, it is becoming harder and harder to dismiss it all as coincidence. Ask ChatGPT. Gene Deal has always spoken openly about the things that made him uneasy during his time with Diddy. But one of the most bizarre and deeply unsettling claims he has made recently focuses on Diddy's relationship with his mother, Janice Combs. While the world knows Diddy as a proud mama's boy, constantly flaunting his love for her with over-the-top gifts and glowing tributes, Gene believes there is something much more complicated going on behind that carefully curated image. According to him, what people see on social media is not the full story. It might not even be real. During his interview on The Art of Dialogue, Gene made a shocking suggestion. He claimed that Diddy shows signs of having an Oedipus complex, a disturbing psychological pattern where someone develops obsessive affection toward their opposite-sex parent and resentment or hostility toward their same-sex parent. Gene was not being dramatic for the sake of headlines. He was calling out what he personally found strange and inappropriate from years of observation. To him, the relationship between Diddy and his mother crossed the line from affectionate into something that made people in the room uncomfortable. "This is the same dude, bro, that used to disrespect his mother," Gene said plainly. Then he added something that made the air go cold. He claimed that Kirk Burroughs, the former president of Bad Boy Records, once told him that he saw Puff slap his own mother. That detail on its own is horrifying. But Gene said what bothered him even more was how the narrative had been flipped in public. Now all anyone sees are polished clips and filtered Instagram posts showing Diddy showering his mother with love. "I seen the love now they have for each other only on film or camera, YouTube or Instagram or whatever they were showing," Gene said, clearly implying that the real relationship behind the scenes looked very different from what the public is being shown. He also pointed out something else that he found strange. Gene said, "I do not know how many dudes do kiss their mother in their mouth when they are 50 or 60 years old. That is them. That is their whole thing." And while he made it clear that everyone has their own way of showing love to family, this particular behavior felt off to him, especially coming from someone who, according to Gene, had a long history of mistreating the very woman he now publicly praises. When you put this next to everything else that has come out about Diddy, the control, the manipulation, the obsessive recording, the alleged abuse, it becomes even harder to brush these things off as quirks or just private family matters. Gene is not talking as an outsider looking in. He lived in that world. He stood close enough to see what others missed. And to him, Diddy's behavior with his mother was not just strange. It was a red flag, one of many. Beyond his unsettling claims about their relationship, Gene pointed out something that caught the attention of a lot of people who have been following the Cassie lawsuit closely. He mentioned that Janice often wore white nail polish, a detail Cassie specifically noted in her legal filings. That small observation might seem trivial on its own, but given the context and everything that has been alleged, it feels like another strange puzzle piece sliding into place. But Gene did not stop at nail polish. He took it even further, claiming that Janice was not just passively connected to Diddy's world, but actively involved in the darker side of his business. According to Gene, she ran what he described as a prostitution ring, cleverly disguised as a modeling agency. It was not out in the open. It was hidden, quiet, protected, and it was allegedly used to keep Diddy's secret operations running smoothly while presenting a polished image to the outside world. Gene expressed deep frustration about her role in all of it. He made it clear that in his eyes, Janice had a responsibility as a mother to step in and put an end to the chaos, not enable it. Instead of being his friend, she should have checked Diddy's A when he was allegedly doing all that dirty S, he said. The way he saw it, she was not just a bystander. She was part of the machine. She could have stepped in. She could have pulled him back. Instead, Gene believes she played a role in helping to keep the whole operation running smoothly behind the scenes. These claims are heavy. They add another layer of complexity to an already disturbing narrative. And as more people go back and examine the fine details in Cassie's lawsuit and other accusations, Gene's observations, even the smallest ones, are starting to look a lot more significant. And imagine if he was like that with his own mom. What did he do to kids like Bieber? The relationship between Justin Bieber and Diddy has always looked strange. But now, in light of all the allegations and insider testimonies, it feels downright disturbing. When Justin first broke into the industry, he was barely a teenager. Young, impressionable, and wide-eyed, he was thrust into the center of the entertainment world with cameras on him 24/7. Somewhere along the way, Diddy stepped in. He introduced himself not just as a fan or supporter, but as a mentor, a guide, someone who would take Justin under his care and show him how to handle fame. What the public saw was a rich and powerful music mogul helping a young star navigate success. What they didn't see was everything happening behind closed doors. There is a clip that resurfaced recently, and it has left many people deeply uncomfortable. In it, Justin says he is about to spend 48 hours with Diddy. He looks excited, a little nervous, clearly unsure of what to expect. Diddy, sitting right beside him, starts talking about how they're going to have fun. He brings up girls, he brings up cars. He tells Justin that now it's time for him to experience the high life. But Justin was a kid. No matter how famous or successful he was still just a child. And there was something about the way Diddy spoke in that clip. The tone, the words, the implication that now feels incredibly off.
Yeah, so as soon as you turn 16, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna let you rock this every time you
Right
come
here?
to LA. Yeah, it's gonna be yours. So every time you come to LA, it's a little dusty, but you know, look at the front shot.
Man,
Turn that out. Minute.
right, so I'm gonna be driving this next year.
Yeah, when you get 16, you come down, you gotta, you know, wear your seat.
I mean, I'm 15. You could ride in the passenger seat. I got my permit. Not yet.
No.
All right, 16.
No,
16.
Slow down. Let's slow down, Justin.
Okay.
Let's slow down. Okay.
One step at a time.
But yeah, the keys is yours. When you get 16, you good to go.
I'm good to go.
Yeah.
All right.
And then when you get 18, you get the house. You get the mansion.
Okay. I get the mansion.
Yeah.
So where are we off to now?
And where'd you like to go?
I mean, wherever you want to go. Where are we going?
So check this out, yo. Justin, you ever seen the movie 48 Hours? Right now, he's having 48 hours with Diddy, him and his boy. They're having the times of their lives, like, you know, where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. You know, I have been given custody of him. You know, he signed to Usher.
I'm signed to Usher.
I had legal guardianship of Usher when you know he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So and we gonna go buck full crazy.
Going crazy.
Crazy.
I'm taking this out tonight.
What you wanna do? What you wanna do over the next 48 hours?
48 hours. Let's go. Let's just go get some girls. Let's go hang with some girls.
A man after my heart. That's what I'm talking about.
What kind of grown man talks to a teenage boy about women and luxury like that? What kind of man takes a child away for 48 hours out of public view to show him the so-called good life? This was not a one-time interaction. Diddy continued to appear in Justin's life, inviting him to events, parties, and industry gatherings filled with adults. There were constant photos and videos of Justin with Diddy, surrounded by alcohol, women, and situations he had no business being around.
When you get 16, you good to go.
I'm good to go.
Yeah.
All right.
And then when you get 18, you get the house. You get the mansion.
Okay. I get the mansion.
Yeah.
So where are we off to now?
And where'd you like to go?
I mean, wherever you want to go. Where are we going?
So check this out, yo. Justin, you ever seen the movie 48 Hours?
It was all sold to the public as part of his journey to becoming a superstar. But now people are starting to question what really went on during those early years and who was guiding him or using him. Gene Deal, who served as Diddy's bodyguard during some of those very years, has been sharing his firsthand experiences, and what he has to say makes the story even darker. Gene described Diddy as someone who thrived on control. He talked about Diddy doing things to JB, then forcing Justin to do those same things to others. It was not just abuse, it was humiliation. It was a pattern designed to break people down and rebuild them under his power. If that is what was going on behind the scenes, and if Diddy really saw Justin as someone he could mold and influence, then what did that 48-hour trip really involve? The environment he described was one where abuse and manipulation were part of the routine. The kind of place where young boys were brought in, told they were special, and then exposed to a world they were too young to understand. It lines up with what Usher once said about his own time with Diddy. Usher, too, lived with him when he was still a teenager. In an old interview, he laughed uncomfortably about being introduced to women and adult situations at a young age. Even then, it sounded strange. Now it sounds like a warning that people ignored. The pattern is there. Young boys, isolated environments, parties with adults, constant recording, flavor camp. A name that sounds harmless until you hear what it actually involved. Teaching young boys how to party, how to charm women, how to act like grown men before they were even old enough to shave. That is not mentorship. That is weird. And Justin Bieber was caught in the middle of it. Back then, no one questioned it. Justin was the golden boy, and Diddy was the kingmaker. But now, as survivors speak out, lawsuits are filed, and people like Gene Deal reveal what they saw. The whole situation is being reevaluated. That clip of the 48-hour trip is no longer cute or funny. It is chilling. And the more you hear from people who were close to Diddy, the clearer it becomes that Justin's time with him may have been far more damaging than anyone realized. This is no longer about celebrity mentorship. This is about young lives placed in the hands of a man who, according to multiple allegations, used his power to manipulate, abuse, and destroy. And Justin, like Usher and so many others, may have been one of the early victims of something far bigger and far more. So, what do you think? Comment down below and let us know. If you liked this video, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to be the first to see my next video. I post updates like this every week where I uncover the secrets of your favorite celebrities.